A new champion crowned as AEW makes its debut in a new country. Time for the Dynamite review. Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of Dynamite for Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. Thanks for watching this, and thanks to those of you who watched my review of They Live that I dropped on Wednesday morning. If you haven't seen that one yet, the link to it is right here. I had a real fun time making that video. I like how it turned out. As somebody who didn't see the movie until watching it for that review, I thought it was just a great experience to get to see that for the first time and then put my honest thoughts on to script for the review, and I hope you all enjoyed it. But I will say there was an alarming number of people in the comments section who tried to correct me about something they seemed to have misinterpreted about the way I talked about a Broadway, because I talk about, ooh, this establishing shot, you can make some wrestling references out of it. Hardy, Regal, Broadway, and then I made some kind of weak stretch toward Bad Street. But people seem to think I didn't know what Broadway meant in that context. Like, guys, I know what Broadway means. Time limit draw. I've known that since I started training to wrestle. If I didn't know what the word meant, I wouldn't have listed it. So thank you all for the corrections, but yes, I do know what a Broadway is. Anyway, Dynamite this week comes to us from Toronto. It's the first time AEW's done a show in Canada, so the fans there were definitely excited for this show here. It begins with the official on-air debut of AEW's newest broadcast team member, Renee Paquette. The former Renee Young from WWE also is Jon Moxley's wife. She made her debut here interviewing Christian Cage on stage. I will say though, I'm very happy to see Renee back on television. I really liked her work in WWE, so it's good to see her back on the wrestling stage once again. So she interviews Christian on stage. He still has his arm in a brace from his injury. He calls himself the face of Toronto and the face of Canada, and he just knows that the outcome of this next matchup is a lock, just like the Maple Leafs losing in the first round of the playoffs, which of course gets a big boo, all that heat. So we go to our first match here, Luchasaurus versus Jungleboy, this deeply personal grudge match. And yeah, this is just a great way to start this show off here. You have Christian on commentary throughout here. Also, I think it's the first time they've officially introduced and announced Jungleboy as Jungleboy Jack Perry, so the full thing. So Jim Ross for months was planting those seeds, calling him Jungle Jack and everything, and now it's kind of come into this form here. I think it's a smart move. It's more evolution of his character. He's not a Jungle Boy, he is a Jungle Man. He's Jack Perry, and I think that's a great little tweak to his name that I think really works. Like I said, great grudge match here. The story they told was really good. Luchasaurus working Jungle Boy's back, and then Jack Perry working on Luchasaurus' arm, which plays into something later in the match because Luchasaurus, his arm is too beat up for a chokeslam, so he has to switch to his non-dominant hand for it, and we get a kick out from that, so it makes you wonder, oh, was it because it was the weaker chokeslam? That was pretty cool. You have Perry with this great sunset flip powerbomb onto Luchasaurus off the apron through a table that Luchasaurus himself had set up earlier in the matchup. Jack hits the Poison Rana and a kill switch right in front of Christian, who by this point is at ringside, but he does help provide a distraction so that Jungle Boy is caught with a chokeslam off the top rope by Luchasaurus, the big finishing move, and Luchasaurus wins this matchup. So yeah, once again, another roadblock thrown in Jack Perry's way. Christian continuing his streak of just being a real asshole on TV, costing Jack this matchup. But I mean, it was a great match, great story that was told, and even though Jungle Boy lost this one, you better believe he might win the war. Also, one more thing I wanted to say in this one, there was an Edge is better chant during this thing directed at Christian, and that could not be further from the truth. I like Edge, but no. Backstage, Renee Paquette is with the Firm. They don't get very far in their promo when they're cut off by Private Party and Matt Hardy. It turns out that Stokely Hathaway apparently bought the contracts of Private Party, which I feel is a detail they should have mentioned and should have said in like a live setting out in front of the crowd or in some kind of big promo package, not necessarily just some throwaway line in a backstage interrupted promo like we see so many times. So Ethan Page, though, makes a challenge to Isaiah Cassidy for Rampage, where if Isaiah wins, Private Party is free from the deal with Stokely, but if Ethan Page wins, Matt Hardy joins the Firm as well as Private Party. So definitely it seems like a big storyline change is in the works here with the Hardy Party, one way or the other. We'll see how that turns out. Up next, The Factory, QT Marshall and Nick Camarado taking on Warjoe. That is the name of Wardlow and Samoa Joe as a team. Man, I thought I had some pretty cheesy portmanteaus. That's pretty lazy. And QT on the mic making fun of that name, as he he should, when then Wardlow and Samoa Joe interrupt. Pretty short and sweet match here. It ends with Wardlow hitting a beautiful swanton on the Camarado, and Joe swoops in with the Coquina Clutch to win pretty handily here. And then Wardlow's about to start the Powerbomb Symphony with QT, but then suddenly the Embassy interrupt. It's Prince Nana and Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony. They show up, and basically Cage is just kind of upset at what happened last week when Wardlow beat him. He also wants to know, where's those FTR guys around here? And sure enough, FTR shows up, and the Embassy powder and dash on the microphone saying, we want to have a six-man match with you guys. Who's going to be our partner, our perfect partner, who is from Canada? And by the way, what time does Rampage start? At 10? And people immediately know what it means. And sure enough, Shawn Spears is back, and he apparently is doing the 10 gimmick again. It's got to be the biggest pop Shawn Spears has had in AEW in his entire time there. So it's been a while since he's had that reception, but good for him. So he's going to be apparently teaming with FTR against the Embassy on Friday or something. And that's that. You know, what are they doing with Wardlow? I mean, not so much Samoa Joe. What are they doing with Wardlow? Remember when he was white hot after he broke away from MJF? Where's that guy? I feel bad for TNT champion Wardlow here. Do something better with this guy than just lumping him in with Samoa Joe for a few weeks. We're backstage with Chris Jericho and 2.0. Parker and Menard blame Bryan Danielson for all the strife that's been going on in the J.A.S. recently when he was trying to poach Daniel Garcia from the group. Jericho says he hasn't been able to get a hold of Garcia all week, and it makes him just really bummed out, but he says he is going to beat Danielson, and he's going to hold on to the Ring of Jericho championship. On we go to see Swerve Strickland taking on 59-year-old daddy-ass himself, Billy Gunn. And I have to emphasize his age because, man, it is impressive to see 59-year-old daddy-ass Billy Gunn looking that good and still perfectly capable of holding his own in this singles match here with Swerve. I mean, it was definitely a contrast of styles. You had Swerve working the leg constantly here, trying to chop the big oak tree down. I will never forget the first time I saw Gunn in an AEW show, because I think it was in a Battle Royal, and like he was the biggest guy in that matchup by leaps and bounds. And it was so crazy to see how big and how much he just dwarfed all these modern, indie guys, these new guys in AEW. Anyway, Gunn going for the one and only in this matchup here, but Swerve's able to hold on and roll through it into a roll-up, grabbing the ropes, which the referee misses during the 3 count. So Swerve is able to win the matchup here. Yeah, it was a pretty good matchup, and it's great to see, Billy Gunn getting this time to shine. I think his role is being played really well in AEW right now. And the fact he can still go is great. So after the match, tough loss for Gunn. They're about to do the scissoring thing with the Acclaimed when Mark Sterling shows up, and he and Tony Nese declare that the phrase "scissor me" has now been trademarked by them. So they own the rights to "scissor me," telling them not to do the taunt, because if they do, he will sue them. He retains all the merchandising royalties from the "scissor me" shirts and everything. Man, what a full circle moment, because in 1999, Billy Gunn was fighting for the rights to the DX name. It was him and China going against Triple H and X-Pac. Oh, what a tangled web we weave, and now time is a flat circle, because now he is on the receiving end of a custody battle for trademark rights in 2022. What a time. Alex Marvez backstage with MJF. He's asked about that handshake tease they did last week with Wheeler Yuta, but then before MJF can talk, Stokely Hathaway interrupts. MJF brings up that interrupting trope and shuts Stokely down, and then after he leaves, MJF has this very interesting promo here where he talks about nobody knows what it's like to be MJF. I wake up every day splashing water on my face, and I know that I have to be the bad guy. He talks about how he learned at an early age, nice guys finish last, and so it seems like he's kind of like taking this on as kind of a coping mechanism or a way to kind of adapt to his surroundings. And he talks about that, where it's like he doesn't want to be the bad guy, but he knows what he has to do, and he'll do anything it takes to become the world champion. It's a great promo by MJF here. It's like not a full babyface promo. He's still able to kind of turn it around into a heel thing by the end, but they seem to be pushing him in that direction where they might make him a babyface. Like, I think he's got enough kind of goodwill and good karma just from being this very fun, compelling character to watch. You kind of have to cheer for him. Like, if they don't turn him face, he's just going to turn face by default. And I always see that with so many people in AEW right now, but this was a very good promo by MJF. We go from that great promo to we're about to hear some more great promo action. We begin with Jon Moxley, the world champion and the new 5-year man, making his way way out of the ring. He signed that new contract extension, and, you know, good for Moxley, good for AEW to secure him for another several years, and really bring some stability to a locker room, which as of late feels like it's been very tumultuous. So for him to be there and have that presence, I think is going to be good for all parties, basically. So Moxley's in the ring, and he talks about his upcoming title match in a couple weeks with Hangman, or next week I should say, with Hangman Page. He talks about, you know, the burden of being a champion, and it's not easy, and some people, you know, crack under pressure sooner than others. He kind of makes this kind of subtle nod to CM Punk when he says that. So he mentions Hangman Page's name, and sure enough, Hangman in his very frilly pants, very fringe-covered pants, shows up. And Hangman, my God, do you want to talk about a great promo from MJF? Hangman's promo here is ridiculous. First of all, MJF does show up in this thing. He's standing up in like the skybox as this goes on, which kind of takes away from this one, but Page holds his own here. He talks about how he took offense to Moxley's comments last week, calling him a kid, and you know, Moxley says, you're not the same guy that I fought last year in the ladder match or whatever, and Page says, yeah, you know, I'm not the same guy. I've changed. I wrestled for the Trios Championship and I lost with my friends. They've disappeared. My older friends are disappearing as well. He talks about the sleepless nights and the births and the deaths and everything he's dealt with. Moxley has also dealt with as well, but he still gets up and he keeps fighting because he is a man, and he punches himself in the head and gives himself a nice bruise on the forehead to prove it and everything. It's great, fiery, passionate. This is one of the best promos Hangman has done, and I think he's had some home runs definitely in his career, but this one I think is one of the tops for sure. He says, unlike MJF, he wanted to say these words to Moxley face to face, man to man, and that's where it ends there. But man, like, great. I mean, just, you know, the future of wrestling, folks. Guys like MJF and Hangman Page, not only can they wrestle, they can talk you into the arena as well. And I'm definitely pumped up for that title match next week. ROH World Championship match up next as Chris Jericho defends against Bryan Danielson. It's the third match in their series in AEW. I like the hype package they had before this, where they actually show some archival ROH footage of Danielson when he was the champion last. We get the Lionheart variant tonight from Chris Jericho. By the way, his tights fit much better here than they did it All Out. He kind of trolled the fans a bit because he got the fans kind of boom a bit when they didn't play Judas for his entrance. He played the Rob Zombie song, or the White Zombie song, I should say. But the fans, not to be denied, they sang Judas a cappella as the match began for this one. More technical wonderment from both guys here. It's exactly what you expect from the matches they've had in the last couple of months. The fans are obviously cheering for Jericho more than Danielson here. At one point, Bryan gets the walls of Jericho in on Chris Jericho, and the fans let him have it. The referee is knocked down soon after Danielson ducks a Judas Effect attempt. Jericho's going to hit Danielson with the ROH title, but Daniel Garcia runs in and gets in Jericho's face. That allows Danielson to hit the Busaiku knee onto Jericho, but then Garcia clocks Danielson with the ROH title, and that allows Jericho to cover and pin for the win. So that apparently clinches it. Garcia has chosen the side of the sports entertainment, the dark side. He is a technical sports entertainer, and he's pitched his flag with the J.A.S, and he has refused Danielson's offer to join the Blackpool Combat Club. I thought that was kind of, you know, I mean, I guess you can't have too many people teasing babyface in AEW, so you got to kind of nip one in the bud here. I think with Garcia, though, they left the door open. I think that they can still pull that trigger if they want to down the line. Maybe not with Danielson involved, but, you know, as Garcia, or even Jericho, but Garcia as a babyface, I think is definitely a viable option. But yeah, this match itself was great, I thought. Backstage, Renee Paquette is with Nyla Rose, Vicky Guerrero, and Marina Shafir. Nyla this past week on Rampage stole Jade Cargill's TBS Championship belt. So Nyla, not the championship officially, but she is holding the belt. And in this promo, she says, possession is 9/10 of the law, and to quote Stallone, she is the law. Then Anna J.A.S. comes in and wants to challenge Nyla to a match on Rampage for not her championship belt. So basically, these two are fighting for, I guess, an unofficial interim championship, or just the unofficial who gets to have the glory of holding Jade Cargill's belt and pretending they're champions. So we're going to get that match on Friday. I'm glad to see Nyla getting TV time again, like not just on Dark and Dark Elevation. Not the biggest fan of her ring work, but I think that she's still a great character, and it's good to have that kind of just like Haas character in the women's division. And so, yeah, giving her some screen time here is a welcome change of pace. I mean, I hadn't seen her in forever on either of the main shows, so good to see her back. And speaking of Nyla Rose, Shidstorm, as she called them on Twitter, that's Hikaru Shida and Toni Storm, take on Dr. Britt and Jamie Hayter in tag team action. Jamie once again getting the big babyface reaction, like what we saw with Garcia, what we saw with MJF. You know, if they don't turn her face, then she's just going to turn face naturally, and there's nothing they can really do about it here. It's a competitive tag team match. I like the work that these four ladies had. Very aggressive work from Hayter at one point, and also from Shida when she makes her big comeback. We get that tag team false finish that I really hate, the one where someone gets knocked back into breaking up the pinfall. Stop doing that! A series of roll-ups has Hikaru Shida beating Britt Baker in the ring to end the match, and man, you can't say that it's shocking for Britt to lose anymore, because she's been doing it a lot, it feels like. I mean, the last several weeks that she's been on the receiving end and taking the pinfalls, has she pissed someone off recently? Anyway, I thought it was a fine match and everything, but man, again, with Jamie Hayter, Daniel Garcia, MJF, they got so many will there, won't theys in a single show, and it's almost to the point of exhausting. In your main event for the All-Atlantic Championship, Pac takes on Orange Cassidy. The epic rivalry continues here. Early on, Pac giving Orange a taste of his own medicine by taking Orange's hands, putting them in his own pockets, and then doing the soft kicks to mock Orange, but he fights back and everything. Pac with this big Falcon arrow on Orange before the commercial break. Great moment here, juxtaposed with the J.G. Wentworth opera commercial in picture-in-picture, as Pac is dragging Orange's lifeless body all the way up the ramp to eventually prepare him for a tombstone on the ramp. That was a great moment as a viewer, but Orange is able to roll his way down the ramp and just barely avoid getting counted out. It was brilliant stuff. Orange makes a huge comeback here, hits the beach break on the ring apron. I think this is the move where after this, Pac's ear is just leaking raspberry jam for the rest of the match. At one point, Pac goes for the bell hammer to kind of do what he did a few weeks ago, but then Danhausen shows up at the timekeeper's table and stops him, but he gets decked for his efforts. Bryce Remsburg takes the bell hammer away. Pac has somehow procured another one, so he's about to hit Orange with it, but Orange gets out of the way of that, hits two Orange punches to pin and win, and Orange Cassidy is the new All-Atlantic Champion. It's his first title in AEW. It's his first title victory in, like, I think 8 prior attempts I read somewhere today. So yeah, huge moment here, and the fans loved it. Best friends are celebrating with Orange in the ring. I thought this was a great moment, a great way to cap off the feud that these two have had. These two have worked so well together since 2020 that I think it's only fitting that Orange would be the one to knock Pac off here. You know, say what you will, I'll say it every time this kind of thing happens, where Orange Cassidy once again has this amazing matchup here, where he's not just the comedy, he's not just the kicks and the pockets and whatever. He is a bona fide great worker. The fans love him, and this crowd reaction here when he wins the belt, I think, is the ultimate validation. He's not just some one-note comedy act. He is legit, and I think that this match right here really solidifies that. My grade for this week's Canadian edition of Dynamite is an A-. I thought this was a really strong episode of the show. It had a lot of everything I like in wrestling. It has exciting matches, really strong promos, a bit of humor thrown in. Baby, you got a stew going. Yeah, not much to complain about with this one. I couldn't care less about Warjo, but I will say since like the week after Arthur Ashe, they've been doing a really good job just kind of ramping up every week, where that week after Arthur Ashe, man, not a great episode, but they've been really upping the quality ever since then, so I appreciate that. But what did you think of Dynamite this week, folks? What are your thoughts on Renee Paquette joining the broadcast team, Orange Cassidy becoming the new All-Atlantic Champion, how the ROH title match went down? I want to hear that in the comment section below. And of course, next week we're doing all this one night early, as Dynamite is going to be airing on Tuesday from Cincinnati, Ohio, in that big match with Hangman Page and Jon Moxley. I can't wait. But until then, folks, don't forget to subscribe. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.